Welcome back to ET with GOTB. We may have finished the WSL season, but we have moved into awards season, maybe. Let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls in the Ball. Well, the league is all over. Not that there was very much jeopardy in the last week. We kind of knew the winner. We knew who was going to play in the playoff game. But Arsenal did bag second. And with that, a spot straight into the league phase of the Champions League. There's about all that was left to kind of tie up. But rather than look back at the kind of fixtures this weekend, we are going to do a little bit of a look back at all teams this season, as we've done in the past, across a two-part episode. But we're not going to do grades or any of that stuff like we've done in the past, because there's lots of that going around, understandably, as we all kind of dissect the season. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to kind of look at how they've fared. We're going to look at an MVP. You're going to give me an MVP for each team.
Yep.
You're going to give me an underrated player for each team, and then maybe we can have a quick look at a high point and a low point in each team. If a team has one, they might not have a high point, they might not have a low point.
And we're going to test my memory skills here.
We are, yeah. But just a kind of general review, if you like, of the season. And yeah, we're going to pull teams out of a hat, and I'm going to not forget any. So I know I did that once. I've never lived it down. We're going to pull names out of a hat, 6 today, 6 later on in the week. So you'll be doing it at random. And yes, we'll make sure not to forget anybody this time. Before we get into that, though, this is your weekly reminder to make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're up to date, following us across all of our socials so you don't miss an episode, you don't miss any content.
We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming your way. Despite
the season league being over, there is still loads more to come. Playoff game this weekend. World Sevens, FA Cup final, England and Ireland games, and then eventually...
Then we are actually over.
Yeah, and we're actually going to have a break as well.
We are actually going to have a break.
I don't feel like we're really on our firing form today, are we?
Well, there is a reason behind that.
Go on.
We were out last night.
Yes.
We were out at the WSL Awards, and it was fun.
It was.
Maybe a bit too merry at points, but it was good fun.
Yeah, I was saying...
to celebrate a lot of people.
I was saying this to Chloe on the pod, that I think I've, celebrated hard like it's the end of the season. And it's not. And I have to row it back now and be like, get your head together, because we've got more stuff to do, more work to do. But hopefully we'll be coherent.
We will be.
We'll do our very best.
Yes.
Okay, so I've got all my notes, and I've done this in a couple of different phases, so I really hope I'm right with my maths and whatnot. But we'll start with you for the listeners' benefit. That's me shaking the names. Now don't look.
ASMR.
Reach in. Team number 1. Here we go.
Aston Villa.
Aston Villa. I think it's quite a fun way to do... Oh no, don't show off my terrible writing. I just scribble them down now. It's quite a fun way to do it, because you don't know which 6 are going to be shown. So you got to stick with us. I'm going to write down number 1, so I make sure I don't forget a team. Okay, Aston Villa. They finished 9th compared to 6th last season. They were 35 points off the top spot this season. They were 35 points off the top spot last season, and yet they finished 6th last season and 9th this season. Isn't that interesting?
Very.
I found some of this interesting, given where some teams ended up and versus how far off they were. They had 20 points this season compared to 25 last season. Goals for 28, goals against 48. Difficult time preventing the old goals, did Aston Villa. Even though they had about 5 clean sheets in their opening 10 games, I think. They weren't too bad at the beginning, but it kind of all got a little bit ropey as the league went on, and they had 1 or 2 games where they conceded heavily. I would like you to, this might be an obvious one, give me Aston Villa's MVP, most valuable player this season.
I can't think. No, that has to be Kirsty Hansen. She, with her 12 goals, finishing 3rd top scorer, she scored, 12 of 28 goals.
44%, I believe the stat is. I'm not pulling that out of my head. No. I think that's my memory I'm working out, because someone else told me that. So.
But yeah, so definitely the most valuable player. Absolutely unreal stats in terms of in front of goal. At one point, it looked like she was going to try and challenge Bunny, although I don't think anyone can challenge Bunny. But yeah, no, I think a brilliant season for her, and we have interviewed Kirsty. We did it earlier this season as well, and she's a very understated player. She kind of just gets on with things, I think, and works the hardest for the team. So I'm really pleased that has all come to fruition this season.
Hang on to her, Aston Villa.
Yeah.
All right, give me an underrated player for Aston Villa this season.
Because that's hard, because underrated is hard, isn't it?
Or maybe that's kind of been like quietly consistent, important, but maybe doesn't get the headlines. Play
Okay,
along at
so
home, by the way, if you want to drop your
I'm going
comments.
to give a special mention to Lucia Kendall, but I think she has been noticed, so maybe not underrated. But I think coming into the league for the first time, making that position your own, getting yourself an England place, superb, and only can build from that. She's still very young. I will go with Lynn Bilms, I think. She's a joint top assister, if I'm not wrong, with 7, and she doesn't really get spoken about at all, but she is quality. She got 3 assists in 1 match against Chelsea, so that was the highlight of her season, I'm sure. And a couple of goals as well, so I think she's been really, really consistent for them, and in a back line that has struggled at points quite drastically with conceding goals, she's been kind of the bright spark.
Okay, give me a season. Should we do season low first, then we can finish on a high?
Ooh, season low.
Probably
the City game.
Yeah.
Where they conceded 7 goals. Was it 7 or 6? I can't remember.
It was a lot.
It was a lot of goals. I think that was a really weird game because they, as Natalia Arroyo said afterwards, they didn't really deserve necessarily to be that many goals behind, but it was just that leaky defence. They were actually in the game at points. They were having chances, and then it just all went to pot in like a very short space of time in the second half. And I guess that's what they're going to have to figure out next season is the structure at the back, because they are very, very exciting going forward, but I think they lack structure at the back, and they need to figure that foundation out to be able to continue to progress as a football team, because you can't win games if you don't stop the goals going in.
I also then feel like their season high was probably Manchester City as well, where they ended up drawing with them.
That's one of them.
Talk about learning.
I think the game against Chelsea was pretty good. That was end to end. They challenged them all the way. I think they've had moments in games where they've looked really good. It's just getting that 90-minute period put together. So
maybe a Manchester City high and a Manchester
the late
City
goal
low.
from Lucy Parker at the Emirates.
Oh, yeah.
That
was a good one. That was a good one. All right, we're going to move on to team number 2.
It's like I'm doing a UEFA draw or something.
Oh, we'd have more boring chat if we were doing that. And awkward jokes.
London City.
Okay, let me just scroll down my page here because I've got them all done in alphabetical order. London City finished 6th. They, of course, were promoted last season. They were 28 points off the top. They were on 27 points, which was pretty good. Best return for a promoted side, am I right in saying that? Best points return?
I think so, yeah.
4 goals against, 28 for, 35 against. And a pretty good, I think, fair to say, pretty good season. And you know what? I think a lot of people thought they were going to be knocking on the door top 4, but I think a lot of us thought they were definitely going to be safe, and maybe if they did mid-table, that would be a successful season, and that's kind of exactly what they did. They did sack their manager randomly when they were in
I still don't
6th position.
No, there's nothing against Eda Maestra, but I still don't understand that decision.
No, because they finished in 6th position. So yeah, it was an interesting choice. MVP. I'm going to go Freya Godfrey. I think she obviously was on loan at London City last season. They bought her from Arsenal for a good fee and made that kind of signing permanent. And I think of all of the superstars that kind of were signed, you know, you're looking at like Grace Gaoro, you've got Kosvari Aslani in there, Nikita Paris. I think Freya's really stepped up and really proven that she can have that impact on the biggest stage of all. She's got her goals. She is a very, very technical player. She is very exciting to watch. She's got her England call-up, yet to make an appearance. But I think that's only, you know... She's young.
But yeah, it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But I would say it's been a breakout season for her.
Who was underrated, underspoken about maybe?
Underrated.
Who was that kind of solid player throughout?
So I'm going to give a shout out to Yana Fernandez. I think she's been very solid throughout, very consistent as well. Bassa Sangari, I think. I think because part of the problem this year, and we'll probably talk about it at a later date, is with the games being so congested. Probably a lot of people don't get to see a lot of football.
Yeah.
I thought that loan by I don't think anyone expected her to come in, but she worked wonders, to be so young and to come in and kind of make that position her own. And I wonder what they're thinking of doing in the future, whether they keep her at Lyon or whether she comes back. But yeah, I think she really adapted to English football very, very well. And kind of was their kind of core player at the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, low point this season for them. I'd probably say sacking the manager.
Sacking the manager, is it just league? You want low point?
No, go on. You can use other competitions.
Well, I think most devastating would be that defeat on penalties to Tottenham Hotspur in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the most ridiculous penalty shootout I've ever seen in my entire life. Everyone just kept scoring, but yeah, to have that go the way it did at the end and just to lose it on that, I think is gutting, especially since Tottenham equalised just before the end of the game. So yeah, that's probably a low point. I think, they had a few results in and around Christmas where they weren't quite getting... Yeah. It's like they started really strong, despite the results to Arsenal and Manchester United. They showed quite a bit. They started getting points on the board, and then they had a bit of a lull. Well, as you expect with any team that comes up. So maybe it's just about finding that consistency next year, where easier said than done, but where you don't drop off quite as much and try and find a bit more creativity, I think.
I think they'd be proud that they didn't look out of place and they didn't look like a team who had just come up. They were able to kind of hold their ground, particularly in some of the bigger games. Maybe their season high, would it be drawing with Chelsea? Would it be, that game against Manchester City? Again, I know it didn't go their way, but that was such an enthralling game.
Yeah, that was I think that's heartbreaking as well. The way that they conceded in the 89th minute or 7th minute or something, because they took Manchester City all the way, and I think that will serve them really well in the future. They play some really nice football when they get it going, and they have good pace in behind. I think part of their problem is that Isabel Goodwin probably had a tougher year than, she's known for scoring a ton of goals. Yeah. And maybe it hasn't quite gone as smoothly to plan as she would like. I think she had a couple of injuries as well, but she has all of the qualities to be that lead number 9, I think. So that's one for the future. She's still very young.
Well, I'm very intrigued, I'm sure we all are, as to who comes in the summer, because there's been plenty of big names linked.
Yeah, if they sign Alexia, then that's going to be super interesting.
Team number 3.
We have Liverpool.
Stop showing off my terrible writing.
Why? It's lovely writing.
I literally just scribbled them there.
No, but it's lovely.
Okay, Liverpool finished 11th. Last season they finished in 7th. They were 28 points off this season. 35 points off last season. This is what I mean, to finish significantly lower. This is probably also my maths not being good. I'm sure someone will correct me if I've got that wrong, but I'm pretty confident that that's right. No, I might have got that the other way around. 30. Okay, hold on. I'm going to do fast maths now.
Good luck.
Yeah, thanks. Hold on. 35 and 38. This would be 38. 38 points. I didn't think that didn't make any sense. 38 points off this season, 35 points last season. What I thought was weird is that they finished 11th and 7th, and actually there's only 3 points in the difference of how far off they were. They did finish on 17 points. They had 25 points last season. If you remember last season, there was just a load of teams in and around the 20 to 26 mark. Mm-hmm. And even coming into the finals, couple of days, you could have seen a lot of movement. Goals for 21 goals against 34. Obviously, understandably difficult start to the season for Liverpool, which we have discussed a couple of times. So, I think a lot of us felt they'd kind of turn things around come the January transfer window, but not necessarily getting the results. But the performances were definitely improving.
Well, they got enough results to get the points, and they were quite significantly off Leicester in the end. It was, 8 points?
Yeah.
Off Leicester in the end. So they got safety by kind of some margin and quite early on as well. Yeah. So they took that pressure off. I think it was that start of the season, that first part. Even when they performed well, they just couldn't get the results together.
Yeah, you think back to that Man City game where they almost held them and then conceded in the last
even
game.
Against the teams kind of where they would be looking to challenge properly, and they just weren't quite getting games over the line. It was started with 45-minute performances here and there, and then the second half would go off. And they'd lose their
steam. A bit of a theme with a number of teams is their inability to have a full 90
Consistency.
performance. Okay, who was their MVP, do you think?
Kerry Holland, no doubt. I think she is...
Kerry Player of the Match Holland.
Yes.
What's her full name, please?
Literally, there was 6 in a row?
Something like that,
yeah. Yeah, especially in the second half of the year. She drives the team forward. She is their heartbeat. She has been there a while now. She knows what it means to represent Liverpool and represent the city, I think. So, and it's just her completely dogged, play with the quality on top of that. It's like her energy. She just never stops running. As she said to us, she probably should stop running a little bit. And she is like the creator in terms of assists and stuff, and gets a few goals as well. So, she's MVP for no doubt.
Underrated?
Interesting. I will go with maybe Grace Fisk. I think she has been a pillar at the back, and she's had to lead the club through a very tricky season, very tricky time. I think she has had a couple of call-ups with England. They haven't quite gone her way. She's never got on the pitch.
Or injury.
And injury kind of hampered her. But I do think she's in and around that kind of quality that, maybe in the second part of the current, just below the current squad.
And that's a stacked area as well.
And it's a stacked area of the England squad. But yeah, I think she's solid, and she leads by example, and she wears the armband really well. And the way that she, I think, has embraced, I guess, Gareth Taylor's ideas as well, and kind of being that kind of link between him and the team, I think, is key.
I think the season low is obvious. I think the beginning of the season for them, the first couple of weeks, having to deal with such difficult losses off the pitch, would have been, really hard for anybody, any team to deal with. And I think they held themselves very well during that, as Gareth Taylor has kind of applauded everyone at Melwood in the way that they dealt with that. Season high, I would say, probably getting to an FA Cup semi-final.
FA Cup semi-final, I think beating Everton in the Merseyside derby in the second half of the year. At Everton, I think that's that would be a big one for them. I think that's always a big rivalry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, hold on. I was about to go on to the next one, but it's not alphabetical. It's pick a team. Number 4. Who we got?
Manchester United.
Manchester United. MU. There we go. Let me just scroll down. Scroll up. Scroll down. Scroll down. Manchester United. Finishing in 4th. Last season they finished in 3rd. They were 15 points off this season. They were 16 points off last season. They finished on 40 points. Goals for, 38 goals against, 22. Obviously had a good run at their first time of asking in the league phase of the Champions League, which cannot go unnoticed, and I think they can be pleased with that. They put in some good performances against some good teams, but probably fell short in the league. They're probably disappointed with their league form, understandably. But who for you is their MVP?
Ooh, I think I will go with Jess Park. I had her in my head, and then I was like, completely forgot her. Jess Park. I think she has come into the side and really added a lot to the creativity when sometimes there isn't a lot. And she has really adapted to work with the players. I do think she dipped at points in the season.
So did Manchester United.
But I think that happened across the board. And probably is just the fact that they were in 4 competitions, didn't have the biggest of squads, playing a lot of minutes, a lot of games, had to come through Champions League qualifying as well. And I think they just ran out of steam.
It was something we were all worried about, and actually ended up kind of coming true, if you like. Okay, underrated player.
Underrated player. So I'm going to go with Anna Sandberg.
Okay, yeah, very nice.
I think she is a superb left back, and had she not got injured, probably would have got into our team this season if she hadn't been injured. But she has been quality throughout. She's very consistent, drives the team forward with energy down that left side. And in a team that does rely on their fullbacks, bursting forward, you see Jade Riviere on the other side. I think she's been absolutely key.
Absolutely. Okay, give me season low.
Season low. So one would be not getting European football. But the other would be those 2 big losses to Manchester City, and the way that they were blown away with by them. I think, especially in that first one in November, that first half, where they just could not get anywhere close to them. And I think that was a real stark reminder of the progress that has been made on the other side of Manchester, and maybe the lack of progress that has been made on the
I think they'll
website.
I think they'll be disappointed with how they performed against their fellow top 4 teams. I think they'll be disappointed. Okay, season high.
Season high. I think getting to the Champions League quarterfinals, absolutely.
Keeping it close against Bayern.
Yeah, and really challenging the Champions League. I think actually the whole Champions League campaign was pretty darn good. Also getting to the League Cup final, beating Arsenal to the League Cup final. And yes, it didn't go to plan on the day, and that probably was a big disappointment, the way that they couldn't compete in that second half. But it was another measure of it was their first one. It was another measure of the team and another moment, I guess.
Another team that definitely needs to use the summer transfer window as well to bolster their team a little bit. Okay. Team number 5, please.
Arsenal.
You look so happy with every team you pull out. Every team you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. Arsenal. They finished in the end in 2nd place. Last season they finished in 2nd place. They were 4 points off the top this season. They were 12 points off last season. Finishing on 51 points. They finished on 48 last season. Goals for 53, goals against 14. Am I right in saying that was the meanest defence in the league? Was Arsenal.
Yes.
They didn't come away with any silverware of any kind, which I'm sure they'll be disappointed about. Finished 2nd in the league. They got knocked out of the FA Cup. They finished in the semi-finals of the Champions League, and then as well got knocked out of the League Cup. So yeah, I'm sure next season they definitely want to be. I know they love the Champions League, but it can't be at the behest of everything else, I don't think. But who is their MVP?
I would just say I do think there is context around everything as well, in terms of injuries and stuff. MVP, Alessia Russo. I think she has consistently upped her numbers. She's been so creative. She's got 13 goals, 6 assists. That's the 3rd top assister, 2nd top scorer, and playing into positions and playing really, really well. She is a complete footballer. The way that she presses sets the tone for the side and sets the kind of rhythm for them going forward, or well, out of possession and winning the ball back and wanting to do those high turnovers. And then she's just so good on the ball, that turn that she does
outside the boot.
And I think her finishing's got better as well. And I think she develops year on year, and that's hard to say after a phenomenal season that she had the last campaign.
Yeah, I do think people conveniently forget that she's played in 2 positions this season, when what everyone likes to do is in comparing players. So
why do we compare everyone?
I don't know. Everyone's great. It's fine. I do think to be second top scorer when you're played 10 half the season, it's pretty good going. All right, underrated.
Underrated.
Or undersung. I don't know.
Okay, underrated. I'm going to go Beth Mead.
That's not who I thought you were going to go with.
Who was I going to go?
I thought you were going to go with Lotte Wubben-Moy.
Well, that's another one.
No, you said Beth Mead.
I'm going to go with Beth Mead because I think she stepped up this season, particularly around the Christmas time. I think she really stepped up. Got that goal against Chelsea as well. A special moment for her. But I think she gets a lot of criticism, and I don't really know what for, because she provides a lot of creativity to the team, but she also provides that defensive side of it. And she was really starting to work well with Emily Fox down that right side. The way that they kind of played off each other, one would go invert, one would stay wide, and vice versa. And that was, I think it was she kind of, did she fracture a tibia or something?
Yeah.
Around February, March time, and it kind of just, she lost the rhythm of the game. But I do think she was absolutely crucial to Arsenal getting 2nd place this season.
We will delve more into transfers and stuff. We could do all of that now, but we'd end up needing 3 or 4 podcasts if we were going to do that. I think what we can do is, when things start moving in the summer, we can have a chat about who's left teams, where they might need to bolster, who's being linked, etc., or who's come in. So don't feel that we're not doing that for this one, but we will talk about it. Season low for Arsenal.
Oh, I think there were 6 draws, because when you look at it, they've lost 1 game, and City, who won the league, lost 3 games. It's funny because we've always said, it
was last season was the first time No, maybe it wasn't last season, maybe it was one before. But it used to always be this age-old, you can't lose 3 games and win the league.
So I think, but it was those 6 draws, and I think especially the start of the season, not the first 2 games, but then they seemed to just lose the plot a little bit and get those draws. And that's kind of where it costs them, those draws against the likes of like Aston Villa. Those are the games that they have to be winning. In the end, the draw against Brighton, I do think the mitigating circumstances with that were that they had played a ridiculous amount of football in that space of time for the Brighton one. But they have to find a way of getting, as Renee said after that game, of getting these results over the line and not like either showing up for one half and turning it on at the very end, or like just being a bit more ruthless in terms of their output and their creativity and working out how to break down teams who will defend very well against them.
Season high?
Season high. I think that Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge probably, in terms of the league football.
You're not going to say winning the Champions Cup? Sorry, I said they didn't win a trophy. Jesus, I mean domestically, but so they have that plate thing.
Yeah, the Champions Cup will be up there. I think getting to the semi-finals of the Champions League again, beating Chelsea to get there was big. But I think that league game against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, to beat them in that circumstances against a team that they've traditionally not done very well against at Stamford Bridge, I think it was a big marker and a big kind of turning point for their season.
That was the beginning of a really difficult, their first big chunk of games where they had that, then they had Champions Cup, and then they had Manchester City.
Yeah, and then they beat Manchester City at home, and I think it just set off a wave of results for them, in that I think it could have gone the other way if they hadn't got that result, but I also think it gave them the knowledge and the experience and the confidence that when it came to the Champions League quarterfinals, they knew that they could do it at Stamford Bridge. And I know they ultimately lost, but they had a lead to defend, and they defended it well.
All right, final team for this episode.
Leicester.
Oh dear. Poor old Leicester City. Leicester finished 12th. They were 10th last season. They were 46 points off, finishing on 9 points. Last season, they were 40 points off, finishing on 20 points. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Goals for 11, goals against 52. Difficult season. I mean, felt like they started off on a slippery surface by sacking their manager 11 days before the league started. That was always going to be difficult. And then, of course, not really doing enough to kind of field like a good deep squad. I think that they really struggle in terms of squad depth. However, there are definitely some players who give everything for that squad. So who is their MVP?
I will go with Shannon O'Brien. She's been brilliant in front of goal. She's provided the goals, most of the goals that they've had. And she brings a lot of energy to the side, a lot of directness. She is very good with her finishing as well. And I think she could also qualify for being underrated as well.
Okay, well, you're not allowed to have two, the same player. Who would you go for underrated?
I will always probably think Sam Tierney. I think she's been such a loyal servant to them over the years, but she never really quite gets recognised for the work that she does. And she can play a multitude of positions. She can play in defence, she can play deep midfield, and then she can also play further forward, and she has the skill set to be able to be that versatile and just keep running. And she's a very good leader. She's a very good organiser. She leads by example, I think. And Leicester are very lucky to have her.
Now, I know we'll probably say the low point is finishing bottom of the table, understandably, but I also think just the amount of injuries again. They suffered so badly last season with injuries, and there was no kind of reaction to that, which I think must be really frustrating for the squad. They obviously made some experienced signings in the January transfer window, but I don't think they were the kind of signings that take the team to the next level, if you know what I mean. So for me, that would be a low. It's just the amount of injuries they had to deal with, and it was maybe something that they could have made an effort to avoid a bit more before the season started.
Yeah, I think, sacking Amandine Miguel 10 days before the start of the season is an absolute low. And it gave Rick Passmore and the whole squad an uphill struggle before they'd even kicked a ball. It meant that the transfer window was late and he didn't get the players in that he probably necessarily wanted. But it also while they bounced a little bit in that, they did a bit better than everyone expected in that first part of the season. I think that was maybe a bit of a natural reaction where you're just like, someone new comes in, you kind of have that. And then they kind of just lost the spark after Christmas.
Yeah.
I don't think they necessarily recruited all that well at Christmas. I know they brought in some experience, but I do think when you're bringing in the likes of Rachel Williams, who I've said before, absolutely love, but she barely played a minute for Manchester United. She's not the Rachel Williams of a couple of seasons ago. Bringing in Alicia Lehmann, who had only completed 90 minutes for FC Como before she came in. I think you were bringing in experience, but you were bringing in players who weren't in form, who hadn't got minutes in their legs. And when you're fighting an uphill battle anyway, you need players to be right on the top of the game, not trying to find it again. And I think that's a key part of it.
Can you find me a season high?
I think the start of the season. I think beating Liverpool was probably a high. Getting that last-minute goal, late goal against West Ham to get the draw, that was a big high. Beating London City as well just before Christmas. They were finding some good results. Like they had 9 points or something, and then it just like the season low will be that second part of the season. I think it was like a snowball gathering speed down a hill and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they just couldn't stop it.
Well, they are our first 6. It might be a bit of a shorter pod than normal.
I might say their season high could come on Saturday, so this might be premature.
Yeah, we'll have a little chat about the playoff at the end of the second part of this episode, which we'll do later in the week. But yes, I think might be a bit shorter today, but if we'd put them all together, we'd have been here ages. So yeah, I think a nicer way to kind of do a bit of a look over of how everyone's season went. I think it's interesting to compare and contrast to the previous season to see how they got on and where maybe things have improved or not in some cases. So we've got 6 more to go. We're still going to pick them out of a hat just to kind of be fun with the order, keep me on my toes, and I'll double check my maths as well.
Keeping me on my toes as well.
Listen, the thing with me is I got one of the numbers wrong, and now it makes me question everything I've added up, and I can't do maths fast or under pressure. Anyway, so that is the end of part 1 of this wrap up. We'll do the second part later in the week. We've got a busy week. We're up in Everton. Yeah. We're up crack arse at dawn tomorrow to go up to Everton, do something there with them, so keep an eye out.
We've got media days.
A couple of media days.
Brighton.
But we will carve out some time to do part 2 of this episode and properly wrap up, I was going to say the season, the league, before we crack on what's coming next. So we'll chat to you later in the week.